in those early days of the Fringe, things were very different to the way they are now. In fact, in the first year of the Fringe, we were the only show. We were, of course, staging a Beckett, and we were absolutely spoilt for choice. Being the only show, there was literally landlord after landlord, landlady after landlady that wanted us to be the ones to stay in their home in Edinburgh during the Fringe. In the end, we opted for Mrs. Plovdiv, and she had some rather splendid digs down on the Canongate, actually right next to Canongate Church, or Kirk, as they say, up in Scotland. And I was very lucky because I was on the first floor and I had a room at the end of the corridor that actually had its own wash basin, and we were very lucky because there was also a very lovely bathroom at the other end of the corridor where my fellow cast members all shared a couple of rooms together, and we had hot water on Mondays and Wednesdays and Fridays if we were lucky, and there was always hot water on Sunday. And we go down to breakfast, and though breakfast wasn't actually included in the advert, I think that Mrs. Plovdiv was so keen to have us there that she laid out porridge for all of us, and quite often she'd walk past my seat and she would just pour a little bit of Islay malt into my porridge and wink at me. Anyway, we were very lucky. We stayed there the whole month. And then the second year, when the Fringe had grown out of all proportions and there were 7 shows, we started to wonder if actually the accommodation crisis would be that there wouldn't be enough accommodation for everybody, not 7 shows. Some of them had casts of 3 or 4 people. I think there was going to be a musical as well, but they pulled out at the last minute. But anyway, that's not the case at all. People had heard that there was a real opportunity here to share out a spare room, or some people actually had spare flats in the tenement buildings of Edinburgh, and they would rent those out. And so we came to the place where we were actually being offered flats, accommodation, even an entire house down in Stockbridge by literally hundreds of people eager for us to stay with them. And the accommodation was cheap because they were all beating each other down on price. And we actually got to a place where I seriously considered not staying with Mrs. Plovdiv. And I felt very guilty because when she heard that might be a possibility, she immediately telegrammed us and offered to halve the price of the rent. Anyway, I don't know how people found out because you didn't have the internet or tic-tac in those days. And so we started to be offered cheaper and cheaper rent until we actually came to a place where a Mr. McTavish offered his rooms in his flat, and he actually offered to move out for the whole month for nothing. And I couldn't accept that, but he said it would be very good marketing. So we ended up with a flat for the entire month in the second year of the Fringe for no cost whatsoever. Well, you know, it's not cheap to travel all the way up to Edinburgh, so we were glad, really. And if it was good marketing for him, well, who was I to stand in the way? By the time we got to the third year of the Fringe, when it had absolutely rocketed up to 12, I think even 13 shows, because there was a last-minute booking, not only were we offered a free flat, but people had heard about this, and poor Mrs. Plovdiv had suddenly had a heart attack, unfortunately, and she was actually found on the South Bridge at 2 o'clock in the morning with a deep fried cod in her mouth. I'm sorry to laugh at that, but you know. Anyway, so we got to a position where a Mr. Mac Scott, I think he was called, offered actually to give us his flat. And we couldn't accept that. It was absolutely ridiculous. But once again, he said he owned another flat and it would be perfectly good marketing for him. So I actually accepted it. I was the one who signed the deeds. Well, things went on. We stopped going to the Edinburgh Fringe in the end because actually accommodation became increasingly difficult when by the time of the millennium there were literally thousands of shows, and actually the rent had rocketed. And well, last year, I mean, I don't go to the Fringe anymore, but my flat actually I rented out for £4,000 a week. So things have changed. I enjoy going off to Portugal during August, and well, I do miss those early days of the Fringe.